minutes here on 92.3 The Fan. From the University Hospital Sports Desk, I'm Michael Markoch. Coming up next, it's the FAN Offseason Special with Jake Volnick, Daryl Ryder, and Coach Lance Reisland from 7 to 9 right here on The Fan.
Want to talk Cavs at 6 a.m.? There's only one place to go. The Ken Carman Show with Anthony Lima. Weekday mornings starting at 6 a.m. 92.3 The Fan. Catch all the latest Browns and NFL news and conversations right here. It's the FAN Offseason Special. Here are your hosts, Jake Volnick, Daryl Ryder, and Coach Lance Reisland. We are Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan.
Welcome into the FAN Offseason Special. Another Tuesday, another edition. It's Jake Volnick, Lance Reisland, and Daryl Ryder with you guys here on this Tuesday. And, of course, Daryl is always brought to you by our good friends over there at Scheiben Jewelers, Cleveland's premier jewelry store. Well, it's nice to be back after a week, and only mildly I have a cough, so when you guys hear me in the middle of my thought and then I just stop, it's just going to be because we're fighting off the cough. But that's going to be okay. Other than that, we feel fantastic today, and we have things to talk about. I mean, we don't have anything better.
Oh, absolutely, and it's good to have the whole band back, right? We're all back together, which is fantastic. So, yeah, I'm looking Browns made their first initial move, and we'll see what happens here moving forward. But I like what they did. It's been kind of hot and cold. I actually did a lot of research on them. I'm pretty excited for they're better, Daryl. They're better up front.
A traffic cone would have been an improvement. But, they got a full coaching staff, too. We're going to figure out how many coaches per win can we expect this year, since there's now 29 of them on the staff.
It's a big staff.
It is a massive staff.
It's 2 for 1. When they cut it down to 53, it's 2 for 1. That's pretty impressive.
Hopefully the win to coaching assistance ratio is on point this year. We'll see. I haven't done the math in my head right now as far as what that needs to be. But, yeah, it is a rather large staff that they announced today. And tomorrow, guess what tomorrow is? It is one of my all-time favorite days that comes around anytime we have a new head coach in town. It's Meet the Coordinators Day.
Oh, how fun. How excited can everybody be? I already hear everything, all the fun online. Of all the things that you're going to pick a hole and be upset about, the fact that I saw a couple of people be like, nepotism in the coaching staff, because I think it's Todd Monken. Is it his son? Travis Monken he's an offensive analyst. I was like, guys.
I'm sorry, are you new to the National Football League?
Have
you not heard of the Shanahans?
I was going to say, of all the things, you're going to be like, dude hired his own son. It's an offensive. There's a whole Shanahan tree. Do we just know Kyle? Did we forget about Mike and all of the other 65 of them that exist in the NFL? We have brothers, cousins, nephews, anything that you can get into the NFL that is a Shanahan right now, and is in a high-ranking position.
And given the position that he has, of all the Browns' problems, that don't even register on the Richter scale right now. Doesn't even matter.
Offensive analyst, I feel like, falls into the Paul DePodesta tier of, what does that guy exactly do? What is it that, I don't know what you do on a day-to-day basis until I walk in the building and find out.
He's going to bring dad coffee. That's what he's going to do.
Well, I'll tell you what, I laugh when I saw that because I sent out a message. My dad in 1996 hired me right out of college. Probably the biggest nepotism there was. Did not earn the job whatsoever. Worked really hard at it, but I got the job because of my dad, and I don't mind saying that. That's just kind of how it works, and that's the reality of it. And that's not in just this line of business. That's in a lot of lines of business, right? It's not who you know, it's who's know you.
Listen, I can confirm we have no relatives working. I know Coach Riz, you don't. I don't. You don't.
Nope.
We have no relatives that work at this radio station.
No nepotism here.
We are here on our own merits.
Earned. Right.
Coach, if you're not going to go to
In Cleveland, everything is earned. Nothing is given.
Coach, you can take credit for your own thing. I think the high school record speaks for itself. It worked out pretty darn well.
Well, you know what, though? It comes down to once you get your foot in the door, it's like anything else, right? My dad got my foot in the door, and then I did everything I could to try to make sure that it worked, right, and try to prove him right for hiring me. And, sometimes it doesn't work. But for me, once again, when they hire these people, this is what they do, right? This is their hobbies. This is what we like to do. So I don't really have a problem with it. But Some people did, obviously.
Some people like taking their shots for no reason. I don't know, just anything that they can take a shot at. But we did actually have legitimate moves that Coach you alluded to here at the start of the show. The Browns have started their offensive line rebuild as we still sit around and wait to figure out, Joel Bitonio going to be your left guard next year? Is he not going to be? They made a trade, which was a 5th-round pick, and then the Andrew Berry special of taking Titus Howard, who was a do-it-all, move-around the offensive line guy in Houston. They typically a right tackle, but has also played everywhere except for center on that line. And did the Andrew Berry, let's hand him a 3-year contract immediately after getting the trade in the books. Now in I think, what was it, 3 years, $63 million that Titus Howard is to. I mean, I'll tell you what my initial reaction was.
It's
it was
Jake
just
Volnick money is what it is.
I don't make anything near that kind of money. And I mean, anybody that wants to pay me, I'm open. Check. I'll sign the dotted line. Where do you ask me?
No
I'm not going to
loyalty
ask many
whatsoever.
questions.
You're out. Yeah, no.
63. I mean, listen, you offer me $63 million. I'm probably retiring at $63 million. I can make that money last. Trust me. But yeah, I mean, the initial reaction off the Titus Howard thing for me was just like, okay, it's a start. Like that is the beginning of. I'm not going to look at it and blow up. I think the money side of it is where I can understand people maybe getting a little upset by it, because he is currently being paid as, I think, the 3rd highest right tackle and what would be the 3rd highest offensive guard, depending on where you wanted to play him. So he's sitting up there on high-tier money, but at the same time, I was like, you have to start somewhere, and he is probably going to give you somewhere around league average play if you're lucky. So I don't think I have many bones to pick with it. Did anybody have a different feeling when the signing was made? Was it anything outside of that, either higher or lower?
Well, first of all, it's not my money, so I don't care.
Yeah, either do I. Really.
I'm all about setting Jimmy Haslam's money on fire. That's number one. Number two, he's probably going to be Jack Conklin's replacement at right tackle, because you're paying him right tackle money.
Right.
And three, as I said, a traffic cone would have been an upgrade based on the play that they got from their tackle positions last year. So, I think that what this does point to, though, is that they might like some of the left tackles in this draft, some of these other tackles in the draft. I just hope that they like the pure left tackles, and we're not doing he played right tackle in college, and we're going to teach him how to play left tackle here with the Browns, because I absolutely hate that and don't subscribe to that theory at all. I vehemently disagree with Andrew Berry. Right tackles are not left tackles, and vice versa, because I think the footwork, the technique, all that stuff is completely different and opposite. Can it be done? Yes. Has it been done? Yes. Do I trust the Cleveland Browns to do it the right way? Hell no. I don't trust the Browns to do much of anything the right way. So I would rather them just pick what they believe to be the best left tackle available to them in the draft and go that route, rather than pick who might be the best tackle, and it ultimately might end up being a right tackle, and trying to convert him into a left tackle at this level. I just rather a pure left tackle.
I think we call that the DeJuan Jones right now in Cleveland. I think that's what the proper term for it is right now in the city.
Well, I think,
and the Jed Wills too.
Yeah,
because Jed was
a right tackle.
Well, I think it goes. You guys are absolutely spot on, and I think it comes down to, once again, that kind of the transparency of it and what they're saying. Even though it is different, the footwork's different. They're saying the people they want to bring in are guys who are athletic enough, right, where the feet you can do the footwork and things like that. They haven't been able to do it, but that's kind of the thought process behind it. Now, Howard, for example, I think he's a true right tackle. He played over 1,000 snaps last year. 600 pass reps. He gave up 1 sack, about 20 pressures, 1 QB hit. He's very savvy. I think people got to understand. Now, the one thing he's not a mauler in the run game. We used to like to say, he's kind of a waller, not a mauler. And what that means is he gets his butt to the hole, and he gets between the defender and himself. So,
the Browns like to run right, so they may have to figure another way to run if he's not a mauler in the run game.
Well, the thing is, though, what he does, though, if you think about it, though, he does a great job of getting his backside between the defender and the ball carrier at all times. So he's very savvy in what he does in both pass sets. He kind of understands games, and he understands, like, if you go back to, like, Warhop and Callahan, the why. So he doesn't have to kill you, because he'll say, all right, this is a 4 front, this is what this guy's responsibility is. I know where I need to be. So he's not just a guy out there who's just hitting the guy in front of him. He has a pretty good understanding of the offense, which I think helps him in the run game, because you'll see him a bunch where he just kind of has his backside and the back runs by him. So he's good enough in the run game, but he's a huge upgrade in the pass pro. I mean, huge upgrade.
And I mean, I've made the joke, and I should just make this a permanent apology where if KT Levison ever gets mad at me, he can just continuously go back to this moment. Because I always say I don't like to rip on KT because I don't think he was in a good spot, but then I consistently spend all my time ripping KT Levison when I talk about the offensive line because I can't help it because he was horrible in the past game. You almost got, like, in a weird way, the opposite, where KT was, I mean, for what he was as a 7th-round draft pick, pretty good in the run game, but awful in the pass game. And obviously, Titus Howard is better in the run game than vice versa with KT in the past, but you kind of traded things off. And Daryl, you alluded to the fact, Browns like to run right. Well, I think the beautiful thing is Kevin Stefanski liked to run right? Like, they like to take it off that way. And why? Well, you went and got Jack Conklin, who was one of the,
right.
I mean, statistically at the time when you got him, I think the best run blocking tackle in the NFL. Yeah, I'm going to run it to that guy's side if he's healthy. I'm going to take that opportunity. Even last year, like when I go and look at KT, okay, well, am I going to run it to the left side with Cam Robinson or right side to KT? I'm probably going to pick the right side with KT Leviston. So I think the fun part of this is yes, the first Andrew Berry move, but I think that it does make a difference at what you do at 6 in a lot of ways. Because you point to the fact, okay, he's a right tackle. I would also probably think, okay, this is where you start to think the Browns maybe lean away from guys like Spencer Fano, Francis Mauigoa, where they're more right side guys, and a couple of those guys, actually both of them, you can question whether or not they're actually legitimate right tackles or whether or not they're slotted inside when they get to the NFL level.
And the Combine might have solidified their thought process with some of those young tackles as well that prompted them to go ahead and pull the trigger on this trade agreement with Houston. And by the way, this got done at the Combine. I mean,
yeah.
That's why this happened. You know what I'm
right.
saying? So obviously what they saw at the Combine verified their initial thought or their thoughts going into it when looking at the young tackles that are going to be available to them. And typically in the first round, if you're going to spend first-round capital on an offensive lineman, especially early first-round capital, it's going to be on a tackle. That's not to say you never spend it on a guard, but typically you're spending it on your franchise left tackle. So that was, like I said, one of the overarching things that I took away from that trade with Houston is that they must really have their eye on somebody in this draft to be their left tackle, and they're going to go get them in April.
I think the other side of this, though, like, can you legitimately at this point rule out Titus Howard as the left tackle and where they want to set him? Like, if they feel that they get to 6 and they go, oh, we really like Fano or we really like Mauigoa or another right tackle later down in the first round, that's the guy we like there and we don't want to move him. Titus Howard's played on the left side. Like, he played for the Texans, both left guard and left tackle.
And you could argue the money is left tackle money too.
So
right? I mean,
I don't know that's a guy that you just want to kind of like throw out the door. I mean, this is the Andrew Berry offensive lineman he loves, and I would probably argue, and Coach, maybe you can talk to it, like an offensive line coach, an offensive guy probably loves the guy that can go, I can play 4 different spots for you on the offensive line because, I mean, you're invaluable at that point. Anybody goes down, if I have to make adjustments, I know, okay, does Titus Howard want to play tackle? I'm sure he does because that's where the money's made, and that's where, at least, talking to some guys in Houston, just as a station, that's what he wants to do, but I know you have that versatility. If I'm playing you at right tackle and, Joe Bitonio comes back, goes down at left guard. If I feel better about my backup right tackle than I do my backup left guard, guess what? Titus Howard, slide on over and I got you there too.
Well, the good thing about, watching it and kind of learning the NFL game over the last couple of years is that gives you a tremendous, roster flexibility, right? So if you got a guy who can play multiple positions, now maybe you, that 7th, 8th lineman, maybe you can keep a nickel guy or you can, special teams or whatever you want to do. I think they got to go out and they got to get a left tackle. And the problem I see right now is I think there's 3 or 4 guys who are blue chip guys, but they need a tackle. And it's really seeing, and if I'm picking at 6, I'm taking blue chip over, I'm taking that tackle. And, then, the worst thing that happened to them, I believe, is Monroe Fielding is kind of shooting up the ranks. And I thought he was going to be a guy available at 24. I don't think he's going to be there at 24. And he's a guy, Darryl was talking about a guy who's a true left tackle with those traits. And he's only played a couple games where, as I hate that for a quarterback, I love it for linemen, right? Because there's less tread, right? So he's a guy 6'7", 315, can move his feet. He's only played left tackle. He's only going to get better. I just don't know if he'll be around at 24. do they have to pull the trigger at 6? He might be worth it. Seeing him, the combine kind of confirmed what you see on film with him. He's a really good player.
Well, we're sitting here assuming that he's going to play right tackle, but again, going back to the Andrew Berry philosophy, there is a real possibility that it'll be Coach Warhop's job this offseason, one of many he's going to have, because he's going to have 4 or 5 new faces up front, right? His job could be to really coach him up to be the left tackle. I mean, we don't know yet. We're assuming that that's what the plan is going to be. So everything could be on the table because, again, this is Andrew Berry's philosophy. He believes that if you're a tackle, you can play both spots. He and I disagree with that. I feel like the footwork and the techniques are different at those positions. You play right tackle different than left and vice versa. That's just my opinion on it. But there is a chance that they could be sitting up there on that second floor of Lou Groza Boulevard thinking, he's our left tackle.
Well, the good thing, though, is that, you think about Monken, we always talk about the non-system offense. That includes the offensive lineman, right? Mm-hmm. So you're going to see that's why Joel Petoni, in my opinion, is kind of wavering, right? Because he's going, I'm going to pull again. I'm going to double team and get to the second level, things I'm good at. That also includes, Warhop with the rest of these guys. He won't, like we talk about KT Levinston, and I think we all agree that he's a guy who plays really hard. He's not a guy who's loafing. He's not very good at tackle. But put him down. But put him down at guard. You want to see a different. You want to see a different player.
He's a good job, good effort guy.
But no, put him down at guard. He's more than that. Put him down at guard. You'll see a guy who can get his hands on you. Because I watched every rep of him, and when he's in pass pro, he's horrendous. But if he gets his hands on you, which you can at guard,
right.
The 3 techniques right in front of you, the 2 eyes right in front of you. He got it. I don't say he's going to be a star, but he'll be serviceable at guard. He'll be a guy that you can give some reps to at tackle. You can't. So, and that I think that's what going back to. I think that's what they'll do. They're not going to put him out there at tackle because it's not a system. This guy can't play tackle. He can be an okay guard, serviceable as he gets older.
All I'm hearing is coaches right here now campaigning for KT Leviston, a Jake Volnick favorite, to replace Wyatt Teller at right guard. That's what I just heard.
I'm not quite what I said, but I'll take it. No, we'll
take the twist.
We'll take the twist. No, I don't. I think he can be good. I think Jenkins can be. They got to be inside at guard. And I know the old adage: if they're not good, just kick them down. That's really true with a lot of guys. If you're tough and you have trouble in space, you can go down at guard and have a little bit of success.
Well, if you're going to move him to guard, though, you want him on the right side because you certainly don't want him on the blind side at guard.
No, probably not. You probably don't want him pass blocking. But I've had that conversation. I don't necessarily hate it. But I do want to get into you brought up Monroe Freeland, which I think is going to be an interesting spot, and one position that I think fans love to sit there and mock at 6 that probably won't be a guy that's going at 6. It's Jake Volnick, Lance Reisland, Daryl Ryder with you guys. Come back here in 5 minutes to talk all things at the top of the draft right here on the Fan Offseason Special.
and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
You can now watch The Fan live on YouTube. Catch The Ken Carman Show with Anthony Lima from 6 till 10 a.m. Baskin and Phelps 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. And Afternoon Drive with Nick Wilson and Jonathan Peterlin from 2 to 7 p.m. Each and every weekday. It's free. Subscribe to 92.3 The Fan on YouTube. Catch all the latest Browns and NFL news and conversations right here. It's the Fan Offseason Special. Here are your hosts, Jake Volnick, Darrow Ryder, and Coach Lance Reisland. We are Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan.
Fan Offseason Special with you guys here. And climbing into the Browns in the draft. Combine past us. Carnell Tate running 4.5 40s and social media going crazy over it because they're scared. Everybody's upset about something, including Mekhi Lemon, and we're going to get into wide receivers at some point here because Mekhi Lemon scares me. Not just from a draft him in the first round type of respect. He scares me as a human being. Well, that combine interview was terrifying.
I never come off players like like stick to the film, except for the interviews. That worries you because you got to be a professional. So that, even though he's my number one guy, I'm going to kind of give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was trying to make an impression, but that was not good, in my opinion. It was not good.
No, not a good impression. And there was Coach, you've worked with the kids a lot. You've probably heard the term aura.
Oh yeah.
Have you heard of aura farming?
No.
Have you heard of consistently make it seem like you have aura or build up your aura? And it felt like he was trying to do that, but instead he scared everybody from ages 0 to 99.
I kind of felt like it was David Njoku on steroids. It's from the goofiness, weirdness, because but here's the thing, David is a weird, goofy guy.
He's personable,
but he's funny and personable, and he's just a fun-loving personality. Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't know what that was at the combine.
It was kind of evil. It was it wasn't fun loving. It was kind of evil.
He was shooting just absolute bullets.
I was going to say diabolical would be the yeah.
It's much better. That's
very
a much better
diabolical
word.
type of a persona that he was projecting.
And he had the drill that got posted online, where he didn't look like he was listening to the Patriots coach or whoever was out there helping them run it.
Yeah,
and then the ball sails 25 yards over his head, and he's just not running it right.
Yeah, it's supposed to run it at 3/4 speed. And he ran it at 1/4 speed.
Well, why would you? My thing is with that is, and I would always tell my players, why would you? So immediately he's rubbed multiple general managers wrong. Right. So you've already burned bridges before you even have done anything. I just don't understand that.
You just cost yourself millions of dollars. By the way, getting picked in the top of the first round is very profitable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing
falling
into the second and the third and the fourth round, not profitable. No. Shedeur Sanders on line 1 to explain that to you.
Yeah, I mean, legitimately, and not even to mention fifth-year options for first-round pick guys, where you can get paid next year. It is just a complete thing, and we're going to get into wide receivers. The one thing that
there's a time to be a goofball. Yes. That was not the time.
No, taking the time where every GM is looking at you and evaluating whether or not they want you on their team. Probably not the time to go a little bit of haywire. We're going to get to wide receivers here in just a second, but I did want to circle back really quick to the offensive line, because there was one guy we mentioned last segment whose name has now been shifting farther and farther up draft boards following, one, a really good performance at the combine, and then we also know how these things work. Everybody that floats around and does the draft and covers teams, you hear things around the league, you talk to people, you hear things from execs, and you're like, oh, Monroe Freeling, who's a guy we projected at the end of the first round. Teams might actually really like that guy. He might be at the top of the first round. And Joe DeLeon was on earlier today with Nick and JP on Afternoon Drive and kind of talked about the opportunity to draft that left tackle, what previously people might have been mocking at 24, now all the way up at 6.
Freeling is the hot name right now, and it's justifiable. I don't, for me, have him as a prospect that is a premier left tackle. You draft him in the top 10 in normal years, and he is a plug and play future all pro. Normally when we talk about a left tackle that's a top 10 pick, that's kind of the discussion. That's kind of what we're looking for, the guy going that early. But because this year's class is weak, and there's really not very many left tackle prospects. They're all right tackles. They're all guards. Fano is a player who some people are talking about as a center more than a right tackle because of his length. I think that with all those restrictions, he makes some sense now to be a riser and to move up, especially because he tested well. I think a lot of people are rewatching his tape as usually the outcome of the combine and talking themselves into him being that 6th overall pick, or at least going somewhere in the top 10.
So obviously, I think we've talked about him a little bit at this point because He's climbed boards, I mean, just from name value alone a little bit over the last month or so. But now we're talking about a guy climbing into the top 10, going all the way to that length. Coach, I know you've done extensive watching on the offensive line already. You watch Monroe Freeland. Is that a guy that the Browns you think should be considering at 6?
Yeah, I had him with Fano and Maui Noa. I had him right there a week ago just because of the kind of the measurements, right? First of all, he's a left tackle. It's always ever played. He's a guy who's kind of new. He's got under 20 starts as a college guy. So you're talking 6'7", 315. Then it goes down to his feet are outstanding, right? There's a little bit of nastiness in there. So even though he's a left tackle, there's the ability to run zone and counter and pull him. He's got outstanding feet. Not only his pass protection, but you can pull him. You can do different things with him. He's good on screens. He's kind of the total package. I agree with that assessment, but I think he is a top 10 tackle. Mm-hmm. And if you're, for me, there's some blue chip guys, but if you're saying, I never argue with offense, defensive line. You guys know I love the offense and defensive line. If you're going to go with him, I wouldn't be like, oh, that was terrible. I mean, I'm still taking the guys who are game changers first. But if you're going tackle and you think he's the guy, I agree. I don't know if he'll be around. And like Darryl was saying, I think it's because everybody's excitement because he's a true left tackle. 6'7", he's 315. 3 years from now, he'll be 6'7", 330, and he'll be an anchor out there.
Here's how the Browns can make that pick work. Mm-hmm. They trade back from 6. Mm-hmm. That's how. I think if you take him at 6, there's going to be folks that are going to say you're out of your mind because, like you said, you're passing up blue chip players at other positions. But if you trade back, you collect a little extra draft capital, whether it's for this year or in future years. Now the buzz right now is not a lot of teams want to give up the 27 first rounders because of what is expected to be in that particular draft class. But if you slide back a couple of spots from 6 and you take them, to me, you really win because you put a little extra draft capital in your back pocket and also at the same time get a player that you absolutely need.
Yeah, so I'm all in on the trade down aspect. I think it's interesting with Freeland because
I think Andrew Berry is, too. I'm pretty sure there's a for sale sign on 6 right now. Call me, 216, or no, it's a 440 area code out in Berea, Ohio, okay? Hey, give me a call with your best offer, right? And let's put it this way. If he's talking up anybody, it is pre-draft press conference, okay? We're going to call this the Travis Hunter rule, okay?
Caleb Downs is a unicorn.
If he's talking you up, that means he's just agreed to trade you somewhere, okay? that is the lesson we learned last year.
I think we definitely did. It's interesting, though, with Freeland, though, because I don't know how far you can fall. I've looked at, just looking for who's the most likely trade partner. And especially, I think if Caleb Downs is sitting there at 6, Jerry Jones, everything coming out of the combine was that he's fell in love with Caleb Downs.
If you want to give me, was it 12 and 20 they have? You want to give me 12 and 20 for 6? Sold.
Yeah, I would be too.
It wouldn't be the first time that the Browns had 3 first-round picks going back to 2017, the Myles Garrett draft. They drafted Garrett. I think it was Jabril Peppers and David Njoku.
Yeah. It's not terrible. Then I question, is Monroe Freeland going to be there at 12, right? If that's the guy you identify that's going to help your offensive line, you're getting a left tackle through the draft who you want to start, is Freeland going to be there? And I just feel like options right now, when we looked at it from a Brown side perspective, I don't want to say they're limited because Andrew Berry's constantly in the best player available market and he'll take whatever the best guy on the board is, basically no matter where he plays. So I obviously think Caleb Downs is there. Any of the guys that we consider blue chip are really good at the top that are defense, Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, Ruben Bain Jr., all of those guys, if any of them slip, they're there and you have the ability to take them. But if we think positionally what makes sense, you're thinking tackle, which Freeland's about the only guy, unless you're really looking, if you think Fano can be a right tackle, if you think Maui Noa can be a right tackle, maybe you're considering those guys up there, but it feels a lot like it's going to be Freeland. And then I take a look at the wide receivers. Out of everything that we're hearing from them, out of watching the guys, Mekhi Lemon, the things that we talked about at the beginning of this, Darnell Tate's never really struck me as a guy who's like a pure wide receiver 1. I think somebody today on the station compared him, it might have been Joe, compared him to more of a T. Higgins, which is you're almost a wide receiver 1, but you're almost a complimentary piece to him as a wide receiver 2.
Yeah, but T. Higgins is really freaking good, so sign me up for that.
I mean, that's nice, but is that a guy you want to use the number 6 pick on? And then obviously Jordan Tyson, the health stuff. I just don't know if I look at any of the top wide receivers and go, that's a guy I have to have at 6. Like, and that makes sense to draft him out of everybody there. It makes sense to go out and get that guy. As much as I think they need a wide receiver one, it feels like wide receiver is kind of falling out of that top 10-ish range right now.
Caleb Downs, come on down.
You're just, like, that's fine. It makes the team better. If you draft a Caleb Downs, I'm not going to be pounding the table, upset, angry.
Game changer.
Well, I mean, when you're talking best player available on the board, right? I'm just going by listen, I'm just playing the rules by the game,
right.
Playing the game by the rules. So
I just, of all the things that are available to you, it feels like you are either pressing really hard into, we're going to take a defensive player, or you're taking a tackle at 6, or obviously you're in trade down mode. Like, I think everybody that sits here and they want to talk about it, I think the interesting thing is go get a wide receiver, right? That is the sexy play for any fan. They want to see the skill position player. Wide receiver makes sense. I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed when the draft rolls around because I don't know that the Browns are going to feel that best player available sitting at 6 is ever going to be a wide receiver.
Well, the difference this year is that Barry's not going to have a deal in place until they go on the clock.
Right.
Like it's going to be dependent on how those first 5 picks fall. Well, we know how the first one's going to go. That's Fernando Mendoza. But picks 2 through 5, how those fall into place will determine if there is a market for number 6 and if Andrew Berry is going to be able to do something there or if he's just going to be better off just taking the player. But again, I don't think that's going to materialize until the Browns go on the clock at the end of April.
Well, you know, my thing is, when you talk about the receivers, I think you're absolutely right. But you can get this year, you can get a really good receiver. You talk about the length, right? Like Malachi Fields, he ran a slow 40, but he's really big and he's really good, right? And then you have Boston, the kid out of Washington. He's really, really long. He can really play. Carnell Tate, he ran slower. He'll probably slide down. But then you got guys like Casey Concepcion. You got Chris Brazil, long kid out of Tennessee. You got Omar Cooper, who is shooting up the board and is kind of like a Zay Flowers kind of guy that, Monken likes. You got guys like Zachariah Branch, who will probably be available on day 3. There's receivers out there that fit what Monken likes to do, especially if you want a blue chipper or you got to go that offensive line. You can get some high quality, because I think you're right. I don't think maybe not the elite blue chip Jamar Chase, but there's a lot of Bs. Yeah. There's a lot of Bs and B pluses, right? And those guys could be good too in the right system.
No, I don't think there's a doubt about it. I just don't know at 6 it makes sense. And I think it's going to lead into a conversation about kind of what has to happen then outside of receiver for this team, which I want to get to coming up here in about 5 minutes, and we're going to climb into it. But right now, 216-474-0092 is wide receiver on the board at 6 for you, or has that changed now following the combine? We're going to get into maybe outside of the draft how you address wide receiver coming up here in 5 minutes. It's Jake Volnick, Lance Rice, and Darrell Ryder, all with you guys right here on the FAN Offseason Special.
what makes Mr. Hero so special? We've been a staple right here in Northeast Ohio for almost 60 years. And of course, the Roman Burger.
I crave the hero.
There's only one place to hear breaking Browns news. This is the radio home of the Cleveland Browns, 92.3 The Fan. Catch all the latest Browns and NFL news and conversations right here. It's the Fan Offseason Special. Here are your hosts, Jake Volnick, Darrow Ryder, and Coach Lance Reisland. We are Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan.
Fan Offseason Special with you guys here. Jake Volnick, Lance Reisland, Darrow Ryder. If you want to hear quarterback, it's coming your way. It's happening in the 8 o'clock hour. We are talking quarterback at some point because the market's getting interesting. Things are happening. And we are probably...
Got real interesting today, I shall say.
Certainly did. And you better bet that we're going to talk about it at some point today of the news that's coming down. But we are kind of in the wide receiver conversation and talking about some of the guys here at the top. And does it make sense to draft them? And, Coach, I like what you said when we talk about these guys sort of in this upper echelon, first round type of guys, wide receiver wise. I don't know that you have like the Jamar Chase A in this class. It just doesn't feel that way. And listen, when we get to the end of this, I'm sure we'll all be wrong in some capacity when we're 5 years removed from this conversation.
Hey, speak for yourself.
Darrow's just going to say, okay, well, whatever wide receiver it is, let's just make sure I'm right at the end of this.
Listen, as long as it's not Andrew Berry that's wrong, okay?
Well, there's a higher likelihood of that than not if we use history as a determining factor. But I do think that there's a lot of like guys who are kind of in that B range, right? Like either a 2 or almost a 1B type of guy that you have on a roster. I think that honestly, the entire middle to late first round, there's probably like at least 5 or 6 guys in that range, if not a couple more that we're talking about then into the second round. I just think it's really difficult to look at this wide receiver room, which I don't think, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, is really all that far off from being like an acceptable wide receiver room. You are a top level talent away. But I don't know that 1B is good enough because that makes 1A Jerry Jeudy. I feel like you need a guy who's significantly better than Jerry, which I think makes free agency / this period where you're going to start making trades really important for Andrew Berry to actually go out there and land a guy. And out of the names that we were hearing, mostly coming out of the combine, of the Browns maybe being attached to names like Chris Olave and names like Marvin Harrison Jr., those feel like the type of players that, one, I think Olave more than Marv here when we talk about this conversation shouldn't be that expensive to go out and get, in theory, based on where the Saints are at with the salary cap, meeting some of the cap requirements in terms of spending this year, and Chris Olave being injury prone throughout his entire career so far as a pro. And then even Marv, I don't know that's a guy that he drafted with a top 5 pick. It's not like you're going to have to give up a top 5 pick to then go get him when he's had 2 years of subpar production. It feels like 2 very obtainable guys, but also where Andrew Berry almost certainly has to live in this free agency if your goal is to make that room significantly better and really improve this. It feels like free agency is where, or trade in this sense, is going to be where Andrew Berry kind of has to make his living if we're going to talk about the wide receiver room, which isn't far off of where he's had to make his living in the wide receiver room, period, because he's been incapable of drafting them.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's probably going to have to spend some money in free agency to bring somebody in. Or as you said, you find some value somewhere in a trade to bring in help. That's where Berry has actually been at his best at that position, though, when he's bringing talent in externally rather than drafting and developing. Now, there's an argument to be made that maybe the Browns it wasn't necessarily a byproduct of Berry drafting bad wide receivers, that maybe the reason why guys like Cedric Tillman and David Bell and whatnot haven't blossomed is just a complete lack of development from their position coaches or the offensive coordinator, right? Yeah. So that's just to be fair about the situation, because I know how high they've been on Cedric Tillman. I've heard for multiple off seasons how this guy's supposed to be a wide receiver target. He can go up and high point the ball. He's a big target to throw to. He's a weapon inside the 20, right? Okay, but they never seem to look his way, or he's never really on the field in those situations. So clearly there was a disconnect somewhere, right? But you look at some of the receivers that Barry has drafted over the years, and so I just think to be fair about the situation, before I just be completely dismissive, which I'm dying to be, of Andrew Barry's inability to draft wide receivers, right? And him bringing the talent in because he can't find it himself. I think that, that raises my curiosity as far as what he might be looking at in the draft this year, because they're going to sign someone in free agency or trade for one, and they're going to draft one or two of them. Like that, you book it, okay? Because that wide receiver room needs flushed, okay? Jerry Jeudy needs an attitude adjustment, okay? So there's a lot of work. We spent a lot of time talking like about the offensive line and all the work that has to be done there. Just as much work needs to be done in the receiver room. We can talk till we're blue in the face about the quarterback situation, who's it going to be and who should get the shot and reps and all these. They really got to address that wide receiver room and bring in somebody, a couple of somebodies that can make contested catches, that can go get footballs, right? That don't have that fall into the trap. Watching some of the drills at the combine, and Coach can correct me if I'm wrong, but like one of the details that I'm watching in those drills, especially the gauntlet drills, the guys that are just letting the ball come into their chest and cradle, I'm not interested in those guys. I'm interested in the guys that put their hands out in front of their bodies and catch the ball with their hands. Like, that's what I'm looking for in those type of drills, because those are the receivers that typically are the most successful, because if you're waiting for the ball to come into your body, 9 out of 10 times in the National Football League, that thing's bouncing off you, okay? You're not bringing that thing in. So I am very curious to see what Barry does in that receiver room, because a lot of work needs to be done. And look, Jerry Jeudy has the talent. He's got the tools. He's got the gifts. I don't know if he's got it between the ears. That's my chief concern. And last year was very alarming to me, because that looked like the guy that the Broncos couldn't get out of their building fast enough.
Well, here's the thing about the receiver room. I'm a little bit more excited about this year's receiver, and you brought up a great name, Ced Tillman. We've watched him at practice. He's physically gifted. He looks fantastic. I also think it's a little bit of both. I think it's on him, and I also think it's being a part of the system, right? This Kevin Stefanski wide boot. And once again, that's nothing against system, but when you have to have all good pieces for the system. Ced Tillman has some deficiencies, right? But why focus on those? And when you have him running a whole bunch of routes, it kind of takes away what he can do. And hopefully that's what he does. Hopefully he's running fades, back shoulder fades, some bang eights, some comebacks, some digs, some outside receiver stuff. I think he can be really successful with that. So maximize what he does. And again, if he can do that, and then, once again, or do you go out and you get the number one guy, right? You trade for the number one guy, and what does that do? Well, then that makes Jerry Jeudy number two. That makes the number one corner's not going to him. That means,
which, by the way, I think is his strength.
Sure, and then the rotation goes away from him, right? Then all of a sudden, so now the one receiver's taking all the traffic away. He gets better. Then Fanning gets better, because that means he's automatically on a linebacker or safety. So he's better. Then the run game gets better, because you got to take somebody out of the box, because, if you can get that number one, it kind of trickles down and makes everything a little bit easier. And once again, I think Jerry Jeudy, as a one, between the ears, it's a problem, because you have to fight, because you're getting all the attention. Where at number two, you're not, right? You're number two. It's kind of like going to Carnell Tate. Somebody had an issue with me, and I agree with it. It's when you watch that game, Jeremiah Smith gets all the rotations and the best corners, and it makes it kind of easy for Carnell Tate. So we'll see what happens, but I think they're going to maximize who they have, and they got to go out and either make Jeudy be the number one, which I don't necessarily like, or find some guys that can work in the slot and then help Jerry Jeudy when he's outside.
Yeah, it's kind of the scheme that almost – it's what I love and also what scares me the most, because the entire point of, players over plays, as you would put it, Coach, is that you have to have the players, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you have to have the top-end level talent, which – pass catching wise, outside of Harold Fannin right now, it doesn't feel like the Browns have. Like, again, I think Jerry Jeudy's a really nice wide receiver. I think he's actually a pretty solid two. Like, he might be top half of the league in terms of second wide receivers on a team, but he's has to be the first. And there's really, like, even Cedric Tillman, even if he took a step up, I still think is a sizable step down from where Jerry Jeudy is. So a lot of that attention is going to be Jerry. I think that's where guys like Olave and guys like Marv kind of come in. And sure, does it help that we're talking Browns and also Buckeyes right now? It sure does. I like both of those guys, and I think that Marv can be a lot better just based on how the Cardinals have used him. And Olave's obviously been really nice, but those are just two guys that I feel like are very obtainable. You can make trades to go out and get based on the draft capital that you have and probably transform the way that the offense is actually going to work and provide the true top-level talent with, I think, when you talk between the ears, it feels like two guys that have it between the ears. Like, I think Marv has it between the ears. I mean, if you're Marvin Harrison's son, it feels like it's going to be real tough not to have it between the ears. I mean, for the love of God, I was watching the kid at Ohio State. He's got it between the ears. Like, I think it does work. And then I think Olave's shown as the number one in New Orleans. Like, he's been really good, and he hasn't had a ton of help. I mean, second best wide receiver for the Saints this year might have been like Bub Memes as soon as Rashid Shaheed was gone. It's not good. And he was still performing at the end of the season. So I think wide receiver, this trade free agent period is going to be really big for Andrew Berry moving forward here. But I do want to continue to talk about the draft a little bit here coming up in about 5 minutes, because if I'm Todd Monken coming into this, I got to look at the offense and feel like I'm lacking a little bit of pieces. I think coach's confidence might almost succeed that when we talk about this conversation and what should happen at 6. And again, we're getting to it in 5 minutes. It's Jake Volnick, Lance Rise, and Darryl Ryder, all with you guys on the Fan Offseason Special.
Odyssey app for all of today's headline segments. Headline sports news every 20 minutes here on 92.3 The Fan. From the University Hospital Sports Desk, I'm Michael Markoch.
The NFL's legal tampering period gets underway Monday at noon. Get all the latest news right here on your home for breaking sports news in Cleveland. We are Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan. Catch all the latest Browns and NFL news and conversations right here. It's the Fan Offseason Special. Here are your hosts, Jake Volnick, Darrow Ryder, and Coach Lance Reisland. We are Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan.
Fan Offseason Special, an hour down and an hour to go. Jake Volnick, Lance Reisland, and Darrow Ryder all with you guys here, and we'll be with you here until 9 o'clock. We're going to get into quarterbacks coming up here in like 18 minutes, but I think there's a conversation to be had sort of at the top of this draft that I don't know that very many people are having, but I think it's an interesting one. And, Coach, I think you're going to be able to give good insight into it because I think it's really easy, obviously, for everybody to sit here and go, either best player available or you have to look at what you have, right? It's, okay, basically, do you take a defensive player or do you have an offensive player on the board that you can go take? That's the argument between it right now with the current draft class slated. I try to think almost in the head of Todd Monken, what do you want? Because I think that if I were walking as a coach, I'd look at that offense and I go, oof. Like, we don't got a whole lot to work with right now, and we're going to have to build this thing up. You're going to need to get players. You have to build the offensive line, get some receivers in there, probably add to the tight end room. And I have to imagine as a coach, I'd be sitting there going, okay, I need more talent, right? I need some of the top-end guys. Go get me an offensive player at 6. But at the same time, I kind of step aside from it and go, Todd Monken's a guy with just an unwavering confidence that it also wouldn't surprise me if he turned around and went, just go get the best player on the board. Like, I'll take care of the offense. We'll find a way, like, compared to what you were doing last year and how bad that thing looked, I promise you the offense is already going to be better this year because I stepped in the building. Go give me the best player possible on this team, and we'll make do with what we end up with. I struggle with what side of that Todd Monken would legitimately fall on. And I don't know, maybe it's just a personal preference thing, but I want you to put yourself almost in those shoes. What would be the difference there? Would you want offensive player at 6, or are you just looking for the best player on the team?
Well, for me, I think the overriding thing that most coaches have is that, first of all, when you have a side of the football that has been as bad as their offense is, that kind of warps your thought process. And I don't care who you are or what level you're at. They've been so bad, you're like, we got to go get offensive guys. But you at 6 want to say Caleb Downs or, Arvell Reese, Reuben Bain. These guys are Sonny Styles. These guys are possibly generational guys. And I don't throw that word around very often. But these are blue chip guys that are really, really good. If you want an offensive guy, I think Jeremiah Love is that guy, right? So you talk about game changers. Well, you have Judkins. Well, you're always looking for better players. And if you think Jeremiah Love can be a guy that is a game changer, put him in the slot, you can do some different things with him. Then you go out and get him, and if he's your best player. But if you're at 6, I think you got to say to yourself, what guy changes the narrative of the game by simply being on the field? The Myles Garrett, right? Those guys who are just different. And there's not many of those guys, but in theory, are there any of those guys? And for me, I've always, and I will not budge on that, I'm always I want game changers. And I don't care how bad, if that's in the draft, I always feel game changers in the draft fill holes with free agency and trades. That's kind of always been, and there's different ways to look at it, but I know myself, I'm like, man, this offense has got to improve. What if this guy's available? But if some of these blue chip guys are on the board at 6 and I'm staying at 6, those are the guys I'm taking, because those are the guys, when you think you can win a Super Bowl, those are the guys that will be winning it for you.
And I just think it's interesting because this is like I think an underrated thing that people don't want to talk about, because you think draft picks and you consistently go, well, it's the GM. The GM's making all the picks. That's the guy who's putting the coach has input. Like in an ideal world, I would imagine in just about all 32 organizations, your coach has legitimate input on especially the guys at the top that are getting drafted. So it does boil down to, in a way, impact on the pick being, is Todd Monken sitting there behind Andrew Berry in his ear like, go get us offensive players. We need offense. We need offense. We need offense. Or is Todd kind of throwing his hands up and going, go get the guy that we all as a collective establish is going to be the best guy at the board right there. You don't have that pressure. And I think that's where Andrew Berry, one, is going to have his best ability to thrive in the draft, is going just get the best player available because that's what he wants to do. But it gives him that freedom to kind of walk away from it and go, how do I just get the best players? because you haven't done that very often, but you did have a year last year where Andrew Berry sat down, you threw out positional value, you threw out everything else, and just went, get me the best players available. And we all agree, like, Andrew Berry's draft last year was as close to a home run as we've ever seen out of him. And there weren't many picks that you turned around and went, well, he pretty much missed on that one, right? Like, even right now, if neither of the quarterbacks really succeeded, it would be those two guys that you pointed to who you're like, okay, that didn't work. Everything else pretty much did.
Yeah, I think that this is, from Todd Monken's perspective, he'll take the approach of get me the best player. I don't think that Todd is going to sit there and say, hey, I need a left tackle, so, do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and also, too, just with the way the Browns do their collaboration out there, I can't imagine that has changed under Todd Monken either. So I think that this will not be dictated by positional need. It'll be dictated by best player. However, I think there's going to be a good chance that best player will be of a position of need. So it's all going to work itself out, especially when you're talking about, that first round of the draft where you have 6 and 24.
I think this is where, obviously, free agency becomes a big part of this too, right? I think that if you walked away from this and you went, oh, we got a couple of offensive linemen, we never landed a wide receiver, I think if you're Todd Monken, maybe you feel a little bit more urgency in hey, we still got to get better. But this is where I consistently hammer home the idea that I think the free agency period, the ability, we're in legal tampering coming up on Monday, and your ability to make trades and really improve this team, even if it's on around the edges, right? Even if it's just get me a couple of solid offensive linemen.
He's got a lot of 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks to trade.
There's guys, picks to throw around that I guarantee you nobody in the city of Cleveland is going to go, there goes a 5th. There it goes.
It'd be great if you found another Wyatt Teller type trade where you're giving up a 6th or a 7th for a guy that turns into a 6 or 7 year starter for you. Like that trade that John Dorsey made with Buffalo, I'm still in awe of because of just how good Teller was when he was here. Now, that's run its course, and he's going to go on to his next team, but that trade wasn't just a home run. That was a grand slam.
Yeah.
I mean, that really was. And so that's the type of trade that, and also, too, you didn't end up giving Wyatt Teller big money right away either. Like, he ended up earning good money, but to me, this wasn't like yesterday's trade where you put a 3-year, $63 million contract in front of him right away. Like, that's the type of trade that Barry needs to make, is he needs to find a guy whom a team is dismissive of, but he watches the tape and sees something there, and that guy can come in here and be a starter. And also, too, you don't have to give him a big contract. Like, that's where I think Barry's got to hit the home run this offseason. He's got to find that type of a move. I like what he did yesterday, but I want to see if he can, basically steal a player from someone, and also, too, not have to pay that player right away. You got 2 more years of this salary cap maneuvering that they have to do because of Deshaun Watson.
Yep.
Actually, it's 3 years, I should say. The 27 league year, the 28 league year. You're going to have to do that in addition to 26. So it is 3 more years of this maneuvering. But once you get by that, right, then okay, you can afford to start.
Open the checkbook a little bit.
Well, no, I mean you can still open the checkbook, but you can do it in a way to where you're not like having to keep kicking cap can down the road the way they've had to do with a lot of guys.
Well, I think the hard part for Barry, in my opinion, we've talked about it here before, is that when you get I like late day 2, late day 3, and I think that's why Dorsey was so successful, right? And that's why I think Barry struggles, because the longer you get in the draft, the more it gets away from numbers, and the more it gets to that guy's a football player, right? Mm-hmm. And that's hard for guys who are numbers guys. So when Barry gets to those 4th and 5th round, and you want to get rid of those, I think there's great players out there, right? Ivan Pace, I remember from a couple years ago, I wanted him to take so bad. He went to, the Vikings and things. There's guys out there, Peyton Wilson. Sometimes they have these guardrails that they always talk about with the Browns. And I think he really struggles when he gets like past the third round because they don't meet the numbers sometimes. But, man, when you watch him on film, you're just like, that guy's a football player. Then you talk to him, you're like, that guy is an offensive lineman, right? That guy is and you just kind of know as a football guy, you've been around it your whole life. That's what you do. And when you're trying to find football players and you're trying to get them at cheap, but they're football players, there's got to be some feel involved. And that's not what this organization's about. They do it their way, which is great. That's their plan. And only bad plan is no plan. But it doesn't help you when you're trying to find those guys in the late rounds or you're trying to trade for guys because if they don't have the numbers, you're not interested.
For being such a personable guy like Andrew Berry is, it does amaze me how the human element completely eludes him when it comes to talent evaluation. Like Jed Wills is a perfect example. How in your evaluation could you not figure out that guy didn't love the game? It was a job to him. It was a pathway. And there's nothing wrong with that, okay? Mm-hmm. But you got to be able to detect that.
Well, you look at Wirfs, and you said that. I mean, look at those. When you hear the interviews, right? The wrestler, the guy, he's not very friendly. And there's a lot of things you like about that as an offensive lineman where he didn't have the numbers that Jed had in terms of length and wingspan. And all those things are important. I know that. But, man, Wirfs was just a guy who was just a wrestling all-state guy and sounded mean and irritated when he was interviewed the first time. I don't know. That's the guy you want on your offensive line, right?
Yeah, it feels like the only place where Barry's even knocked that out of the park in terms of the draft late. It's kind of been the secondary, right? Like you got a couple of good years out of Cam Mitchell. Right now, Miles Harden. Martin Emerson's another guy who's a day 2. I mean, Miles Harden is a late day 3 pick, and
might be, think about that. That might be the position that's most numbers based, right? Your hips, your length, your arm length, right? Your ability to turn in and out, the drills, the 3-cone drill. Though that position really speaks to what they like, and that's why it's really they go out and they get some really good guys, even in free agency. If you think about who they've gotten in that hasn't been drafted because it fits the numbers. That DB breakdown fits the numbers, what they want.
It's going to be something that Andrew Berry then has to turn around and look at this year, though, because, again, I will emphasize the fact that I think this is the more important period. The draft is going to be important. It's going to be huge for Berry to come in here and get not only players who are going to be cheap because they're going to be on rookie deals, but also players who are starting for you and effective.
Yes.
But it's going to be in a way of, hey, I got to take free agency and basically play this thing out as if I have a starting lineup.
I don't believe
fill everything.
I don't believe what he said at the combine.
Which was what?
About, going to be hyper-aggressive next year. If this isn't the year. I completely disagree. You look at everything he has to change or fill this offseason, he has no choice but to be hyper-aggressive. Now, he might not be breaking out the checkbook with the big, splashy, massive contracts, but he is going to be hyper-aggressive here within the next week or so, filling all these spots through signing players, free agency. Yes, they have 9 draft picks. I expect that number to decrease when he, makes a couple of moves here. But no, he's going to be aggressive. And you just the thing is, I think with Andrew, you have to really listen and pay attention to what he says, and then expect him to do the exact opposite. Like if he talks up a guy, if he's talking up a guy, he's not interested in that guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I just, that's one thing that just over the years with Barry I've kind of picked up on. I don't want to say he lies to us, but he kind of lies to us, okay?
A little bit.
I'm not going to say he lies to us, but he lies to us all the time. But that's his job, right? There is a lot of subterfuge in what you're doing there because you don't want to be tipping your hands to the other 31 teams as far as what your true intentions are. And again, last year's pre-draft press conference was Exhibit A, where he's talking about Travis Hunter being a unicorn, this, that, and the other. Lo and behold, a week earlier, he agreed to trade that number 2 pick to Jacksonville. They were going to sit on it until the draft night. Browns went on the clock, and then all of a sudden, Travis Hunter ends up in Jacksonville. And I think that was his way of telling the Jaguars, you made a real good decision making this trade.
Yeah,
let me tell you the quality of player you're about to get.
It is a very high level of lip service that was happening during that conversation.
Let me ask you guys a question. Do you think it's changed at all with Monken coming in, being 60 years old? this is his shot. Do you think it's changed at all? Like coaches go in with non-negotiables, regardless of what level they go in. Do you think he has more pull in who they're going to get than Kevin did? As going back to when in Kevin's drafts, do you think Monken will have more pull on who they go and get, or is it totally on Barry again?
I think that Monken will have input, but I think he's going to have to earn that level of, influence, if you will. He'll be consulted. He'll be part of the process. But that
would be one of my things. I would hope.
I don't think Todd Monken's making any picks in April. That's all I'm going to say.
I would like to have him be more involved. I would like him to have, if it's my job on the line, you would think that, being older and this is it for you kind of deal.
It's your one shot.
Yeah, so you would think.
By the way, the Browns are the worst franchise to get your one shot with, but that's neither here nor there.
But but if you would think that would be part of the interview process, right? If it's your one shot, you're going to say, listen, once again, I don't know how all the ins and outs, but if I'm the guy coaching him, you would hope he'd have a little bit of say. Yeah. Who knows? It doesn't seem like that's the case, in my opinion.
I think on the other side, if you're Andrew Barry and you go, hey, this is my one shot, I need to talk, Andrew might be looking at you going, it might be your one shot, it's my last shot. Okay, my job might also be on the line here, so we can work in tandem. But understand, I got the last word.
Unless Todd Monken turns out to be Freddie Kitchens 2.0, and believe me, there's a lot in Monken's personality that reminds me of Freddie Kitchens, but I do feel like they are two distinctly different men as well. Okay, I think Monken's a little bit more of a grown-up. And I think that's how I'm going to phrase that.
That was well done, by the way. That was well done. I got the point, but that's well done.
Okay. I just, if he turns out to be Freddie 2.0, I would agree with you. But if Monken ends up being successful and, Barry's going to stay around for a while.
I mean, they are directly tied together at this point.
Listen, we thought Kevin and Andrew were joined at the hip. We were told for years they're joined at the hip. If I had $1 for every time I heard that come out of ownerships, thought partners, joined at the hip, whatever, right? If I had $1 every time I hear that, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be on a beach somewhere.
But Andrew Barry doesn't lie to us, Daryl. Remember that. 216-474.
Listen, I'm not saying Andrew Barry lies to us. Andrew Barry lies to us.
Should Todd Monken be calling for the Browns to go offense in the first round? Plus, got to talk a little quarterback. One big guy being on the open market now. Should the Browns be interested, and who will they be interested in? Coming your way in 5 minutes. Jake Volnick, Lance Reisland, Daryl Ryder with you guys on the FAN Offseason Special.
at straighttalk.com and Walmart. Straight Talk Wireless. Straightforward. Always. Taxes and fees apply. Plan purchase required for free phone offers. Copyright 2026 Verizon.
This is the only place to trust for Cavs talk anytime you want. Cleveland's Sports Radio, 92.3 The Fan. Catch all the latest Browns and NFL news and conversations right here. It's the Fan Offseason Special. Here are your hosts, Jake Volnick, Darrow Ryder, and Coach Lance Reisland. We are Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan.
Fan Offseason Special with you guys. 35 minutes for myself, Coach, Darryl.
Fast. Goes fast.
It really does. It moves like crazy. And now we have 34 minutes to talk quarterback. That's what we have. We have 34 minutes to talk quarterback.
We start with Dylan? We start with Dylan. No, I'm sorry.
No. I don't think.
No, we want people to keep listening to the show.
That's just
Coach,
me.
Okay?
I'll push that.
You might want to talk about
I'll push the
Dylan.
off button and just start talking by myself.
I'm good. I saw all I needed to see. We're good. We can move on.
I don't think much has started with Dylan since his time at Oregon. I don't know that anybody has started with Dylan.
Can anyone
since
see
Oregon.
Dylan?
I'm not getting off. I'm not leaving the train. I'm not leaving the train. I stand by it.
Past your stop, Coach.
Right.
Conductor's coming trying to wake you
right.
up right now.
I'm on the tracks. I get it.
But no, I think there's obviously a lot of interest in that spot right now. Not that there's not interest with, obviously, Shedeur has played relatively well in the 7 games. I mean, he's had flashes. I shouldn't say relatively well. He's had flashes of ups and downs. But there's guys floating out there, and if the Browns are trying to get better, there's been a couple of names thrown in the mix. And one of them has been Malik Willis, which I think at this point is relatively fair. I don't know that I say throw out of the conversation, but like we had Jeremy Fowler over the weekend of ESPN, right, that there's some teams in the mix, but it's almost certainly not going to be the Browns. Like, he, I think, put the Dolphins really high on that list. The Cardinals were interested. He's like, the Browns are interested. Malik Willis just probably isn't going to end up being a Cleveland Browns. It makes sense because you don't have a ton of offensive talent, and the guy has free agency powers to basically walk wherever he wants and to fit in a system that I think is going to really have to fit what he does, which maybe Monken working with Lamar does something in that conversation, but I think a lot of you don't have an offense line right now, you don't have weapons for me to throw the ball to. I'm trying to look my best, and this is my redemption opportunity from being drafted in Tennessee. I don't know that fits. I don't know that almost $30 million a year fits either on the Browns timeline. But okay, like even if we just take Malik Willis out of the conversation for now, it kind of leaves a what's next conversation, which I think we've heard 2 big names in this right now, which is one, Zach Jackson was on with the station multiple times over the last week or so and has been hammering home the idea that Anthony Richardson would be next up on that list following Malik Willis.
Right.
Or a name that became even more available today than previously thought is Kyler Murray, because as everybody had reported today, and even there was some reporting during the Combine, the Cardinals aren't really finding a trade partner right now and are expected to release him when the league year ends within the next, week or so? I mean, legal tampering is essentially at the end of it.
Why would you trade for a guy is getting released, and then also, 2, has guaranteed money on that contract that the Cardinals are going to, have to pay, and you turn around and can get a guy for the league minimum. Like that I mean, that's if I'm the Browns right now, I'm, on the phone with the agent as quickly as I'm allowed to try and make that happen. Because if you're telling me I can get Kyler Murray in here on a 1-year deal at the league minimum of $1.3 million and change, sign me up. I'll take that over Malik Willis, because at least Kyler Murray has a resume, and he's got a resume that includes multiple seasons of completion percentages above 67%, 3,500 plus yards passing, a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Like, yeah, give me that guy. His QBR is really good as well. I'll take a shot with that. That's more economically viable for me, right? And the thing that you can offer Kyler is, yeah, you're QB1 here. There's no competition. You're starting this year. You get to play. As long as you're healthy, you're on the field. You got a shot to, and if you do it, hey, maybe that maybe the league minimum contract, you throw in some performance incentives, or and maybe you throw in an option year or something like that. And hey, if you do meet these performance incentives, the option year gets automatic, and instead of the league minimum now, you get paid your market rate on the second year of that deal or something like that. I think that the Browns could come up with a very creative contract for him. And also, too, you get a player who's motivated after being discarded by Arizona. But, yeah, no team was going to trade for that contract. Absolutely not. Go ahead and scratch that check, Cardinals. And, so I did find the reporting interesting, though, that there are 2 teams on his radar. And the bad news for the Browns are I don't think they're one of the 2 teams. I think the Minnesota Vikings are at the top of his list, and then maybe a team like Pittsburgh.
I think those teams would end up there. I think in a lot of ways, the Jets kind of make sense just being in New York, being the hot destination they are. You have Garrett Wilson there. You have Breece Hall now there with the franchise tag. So there's a couple of interesting pieces there. I think there's a couple of teams that can come in. Kyler, to me, there's multiple things that go into it. And it's not that I hate it, but I also don't love the idea of it. The money thing is obviously a massive positive because he's not going to cost you basically anything if he's willing to sign for something near the league minimum, given what he's going to be paid in Arizona. The other side of that, though, is that I think Kyler's a good quarterback. I don't think Kyler's a great quarterback. Right? And it's a 1-year deal, so he doesn't have to be a great quarterback. He's getting that opportunity to prove it.
He's another version of Baker Mayfield.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
I think that's a good comparison.
Yeah, I think Baker's slightly better than he is and has proven that, but I don't think that he's all that far off of that same type of range, like a top 12 to 15-ish type of guy right in that range. I just don't know that I've seen a ton out of Kyler, and the bad part is that if I bring in a quarterback like Kyler Murray, it's an established quantity. Like, I know what I'm getting out of him in a lot of ways, and it's probably something that's going to pick me up 2 to 3 wins, which I think leaves you right about 8. I think that puts you in football purgatory when we talk about the draft of if you're Andrew Berry making this decision. I think Monken might love it. If I'm Andrew Berry making this decision, if you give me 8 to 9 wins, that's great. I'm probably going to keep my job. I also have no chance to get that quarterback if I don't think you're the answer.
But guess what, too? You're back to where you were supposed to be this past year because they were supposed to be around 8 wins, right?
Yeah.
When you now, you can play both sides of that coin and say, well, then they should have lost the Green Bay game. If you want to talk about should have won the Vikings game in London, should have beaten the Titans, should not have lost to the Jets. That's inexcusable, right? Both of those losses, in my view, the Jets and the Titans, completely inexcusable. But all things being equal, right, they probably should have won 7 or 8 football games this past season, right? Mm-hmm. So now you bring in Monken, his new staff, retool offense with whatever Andrew Berry's going to do from a personnel standpoint this offseason between the offensive line, the receiver room. You got to replace David Njoku, tight end, right? So whatever he ends up, and of course, obviously, whatever quarterback decision they ultimately make, I can't wait for another quarterback competition. I'd rather a root canal at this point, but that's where we're at.
As long as it's not 4, I'm going to be okay with that.
Yeah, anything less than 4, we're good, right? As long as nobody in the quarterback competition is thrown to the ball boys, okay, during reps, because you ran out of receivers during the drill. Coach, Coach is laughing right now, but he knows exactly what I'm talking about.
It's impressive. You got like 80 guys in that room. And I mean, just in general, like when we're talking about training camp preseason, you got about as many guys as you could potentially ask for.
Forget about training camp arms. They need training camp hands. That's what they need.
Ton of guys to catch. Anybody else? I'll take people from the local college. As long as it's not, I mean, the guy that's got to go retrieve the balls and put them in the bag.
I'm sure Shador's run into a couple of nice young men over at BW when he's working out.
Got to be a couple of guys that can catch the ball there slightly better than the ball boys for the team. Maybe simulate a little bit better routes.
Those ball boys, good
hands.
They were pretty good. They were actually pretty good.
Granted, they were stationary, but pretty good hands.
Good hands. Don't know if he can run a comeback at the level of an NFL receiver. That might be different.
I'm going to give you my take on Kyler Murray. All right, so I am not in on Anthony Richardson. I know we'll talk about him. But Kyler Murray, here's what interests me about all the things that Daryl said about the numbers. So the numbers aside, I go back to this name it'll come full circle here, but I go back to Greg Roman, right? And what Greg Roman did with Lamar Jackson. And Greg Roman said, we're going to take this outlier and we're going to make him a quarterback and we're going to make this offense for him. And then it kind of ran its course. Monken came in and kind of took what Roman did and kind of just made it a little bit more quarterback friendly, where he was more pocket passing, still on the move, still had some quarterback runs, but took some of the pounding away from Lamar Jackson, right? So he still had some of the stuff. So he kind of, evolutionized it to make it even more quarterback friendly, but did not go away from what Lamar does best and still kept that a part of his game. If I'm Kyler Murray, I look into that. And if you're at this point in his career, he's got to be good this year, right? He can't be coming in to be average. So for me, having Todd Monken coming from what he did with Lamar based on what he had to do from, the offense that was, with Greg Roman's offense, I think that would be really enticing if being a high-level player is important to him. Obviously money talks and all those kind of things, but all those places he's talking about, I don't know if there's a system that would be better for him in terms of trying to make it work for him. I think if that's important to him, then I think the Browns will be in the mix with him.
I continuously go back to a guy that, and I just look at what he's done in Arizona. And admittedly, obviously, they have not put together the best rosters, have not had the best coaches in the world. Cliff Kingsbury did not succeed as a head coach. Jonathan Gannon did not succeed as a head coach. But I continuously go back. You just look at what they've done since Kyler Murray got drafted. 5-10, 8-6. They got up to 11-6 one year, immediately back down to 4-4, 8-3 wins. He's not the massive difference maker. And the money makes up for part of that, but to hand it over from...
So what you're saying is that his win-loss resume very similar to Deshaun's with the Houston Texans.
Yeah. But
put up a lot of numbers.
But didn't exactly equate to wins.
Yeah.
And that was in years where Arizona had respectable defenses.
The year Deshaun led the NFL... People forget, the year that Deshaun led the NFL in passing...
4 wins.
Texans won 4 games that year.
And it's one of the worst defenses Texans were terrible on defense that year. So in 2020,
the Texans' defense that year was the equivalent of the Browns' offense the last 2 years.
which
as far as stinctitude. That's a new word for you, by the way.
That's pretty impressive.
Stinctitude.
That's a good word.
Yeah, there's context that takes in there too. Is like, how much did you have to throw? Are they in nickel? Are they in 3-man pressures?
Right.
Are they giving up underneath yards? There's a lot of things that tie into when you're not playing winning football. That's where the Browns have to be. They have to be they get a quarterback that can allow them to play winning football. I don't know if that's Kyler Murray, but that's where it comes. They get a guy who can play winning football. I really believe they're going to play winning off defense again. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to play push special teams. So if you just can protect the football and make a couple plays, I think you have a chance to win, between 6 and 10 games without hesitation. You just have to have competent quarterback play, which is easier said than done here in Cleveland.
I think 6 to 10 is a really dangerous range for them. That's the problem. And if you get to that with Anthony Richardson, we're going to bring up, if you get to that with Shedeur Sanders, I think you can look yourself in the mirror and go, okay, if we get to that with these guys, either A, we come to the conclusion that one of these guys is the answer, or B, we come to the conclusion that we still need to go get that quarterback and he's going to elevate us even further.
I think what you're saying is you're afraid.
I'm terrified.
You're afraid that the quarterback will be average enough
to allow
scenario. The Browns to be average, which then kicks them out of a top pick next year. So you want them... I want to get you on record right now.
Don't say the word.
You want them to go full Titanic next season to make sure that they're in position to get a top 3 pick.
See, this is the problem. I don't want them to go full Titanic, but I'm going to use a fantasy football term for you. Boom or bust. That's what I want. I want my quarterback to be boom or bust.
Okay, fair enough.
I want to eliminate as much of the middle ground as possible.
But I kind of feel like you don't feel like that there's a boom in there. That's, I guess, what I'm getting at. You don't feel there's a boom in there that it's going to be a bust.
I think there's a much higher likelihood with any of the quarterbacks you have on the market, because I don't think it's a very good year for quarterbacks. I think you have a lot more bust potential than you do boom potential, but I think your best opportunity to go into the boom side of things is going to be a guy like Anthony Richardson, who we're going to get to here in about 5 minutes, and a guy like Shedeur Sanders, who's already currently sitting on the roster.
Yeah, Shedeur Sanders is the cheapest. Kyler Murray will be the second cheapest option.
Anthony Richardson's also not going to cost that much money, but we're going to get to that.
There's nothing worse than the word. Like, that is so, I don't know. The idea of not trying to win every single game.
No. They're going to try and win.
But the idea of not putting, so you're closer.
Listen, the 1-31 Browns were trying to win every week, okay? They were just that bad.
But I'm saying, if you're not putting forth the best, if you're, like I was telling everybody, if Deshaun's the best guy going in, then he starts game 1. And Shedeur plays when he beats him out, or whatever it is. Like, I just don't, that mentality, I understand it now, listening to all you, but for me, that's what culture is. No matter what's going on the outside, hopefully Monken is saying, I don't care about any of that. Give me these guys, we're going to win. Don't lose them before you play them. But that, when you get into, I've heard you guys say that with like the Pittsburgh, right, where you win 8 to 10 and then you're kind of stuck.
It's football purgatory. It is the worst place to be, but I think that's the difference. Sure, Todd Monken, go put the best guy in the field. I have no problem with that. My job as Andrew Berry is to get this team where they need to be, and that might be, kind of eliminating the middle ground and not giving you a guy like Kyler Murray.
But if you plan on the future, Andrew Berry's in the point where if he plans for the future anymore, he's not going to be a part of it, right? So what is that? I mean, I don't know.
It's a dangerous game to play.
So you talk about boom or bust. It's like, he was saying we're going to be ultra aggressive, like Daryl said, next year. Are you going to be, if you're not ultra aggressive this year and you don't make improvements on the offense, are you going to be there next year? I don't know. I'm doing everything right now. I'm doing everything to win week 1.
We're going to get into the ultimate boomer bust. Anthony Richardson coming back here in 5 minutes. Jake Volnick, Lance Rise, and Daryl Ryder putting a bow on this thing right here on the Fan Offseason Special.
without them in it.
Visit adoptuskids.org to learn more. Brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Spring training is underway. Get the biggest news from Florida and Arizona here. Cleveland's Sports Radio, 92.3 The Fan. Catch all the latest Browns and NFL news and conversations right here. It's the Fan Offseason Special. Here are your hosts, Jake Volnick, Darrow Ryder, and Coach Lance Reisland. We are Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan.
Final segment with you guys here on the Fan Offseason Special. Overtime with myself, Jake Volnick, coming up here at 9 o'clock. So the conversation rolls on. We're going to talk Little Browns out of the gate. We're eventually going to get into the Cavs when they're done over in Detroit, so you have that to look forward to. But we still have a little bit more Browns to talk right here between myself,
I
Coach
am not
Reyes, and
walking
Darryl.
to Detroit.
Did I say over in Detroit?
Yes.
Over with Detroit. Across the street, across
You better go
state
now,
lines.
Daryl. You better go now.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if they're in Detroit, I should have left 2 hours ago.
Yeah, you might be a little late getting there for the post game. You might be able to talk to the guys as they board the team bus to come back home, which they have 4 days off, so they'll have plenty of time to make their way home and do whatever they want because NBA scheduling, but that's for another time. But we were talking a little bit about Kyler. And, Coach, I know you're adamantly against the idea of adding Anthony Richardson. And the worst part about it is the fact that I looked at all the guys who are available quarterback-wise. I think even, like, digging into the guys that are going to be available in the draft, Anthony Richardson is my premier, not top option of, like, that's a guy that's going to come in and immediately start for you and turn this team around. But in terms of quarterback additions to that room, I think the guy that fits in makes the absolute most sense.
Well, he's a guy. The reason I'm against him is, first of all, it's the old Bill Parcells amount of starts, right? So I thought he was drafted way too high. Everybody talks about the amount of starts. Well, it's 30 starts, it's 23 wins, and it's a 3-year starter. That was Bill Parcells' rules, and I really like that, especially as these young quarterbacks come into the league, because they're so kind of behind in terms of being underneath center, some of the things they got to do. But once again, it's the underwear Olympics, right? He comes in and he has arguably one of the best combine, pro day, all that kind of stuff. The measurables are absolutely through the roof. And when you get measurables that high, they're hard to pass. And the film never matched. So I was looking at his senior year at Florida. They're 6-6. He throws for 2,500 yards. He throws for 17 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Not great. Right, he rushed for 600 yards on 103 carries, so he has these freakish numbers athletically. Then he goes to the combine, he runs 4.43, 1.53 10-yard split, which is insane. The 20-yard, these numbers were through the roof, and yet they just didn't match on film. They never have. I've never seen it, and rarely do guys catch up. So I think if he was in a spot where he could sit behind and grow, then he'd have a chance. It's like the Tim Couch, right? Once the bullets are out of the chamber, it's hard to get back. And I just had never seen it in him, and I don't think this is the spot with this talent on this team that it's a good fit for him. I just don't.
In a lot of ways, I thought last year was that for him, though. Obviously, other than smacking himself in the face with the elastic exercise band and fracturing his orbital bone, it was the sit behind Daniel Jones and watch experience because he did get beat out in the quarterback competition. Daniel obviously played a really well beginning of the season. Things started to tail off. He got injured, and obviously their season went down the tank. But that was kind of the year for him. And it's not that I think, I don't even know that Anthony Richardson legitimately beats out Shedeur Sanders in a quarterback competition. I don't. I think from a talent perspective, the raw talent, I think he's got as much arm strength as you could possibly ask for. That's a guy who's got an absolute cannon down the field. He's clearly a dual threat quarterback. He can make it work with his legs. Two things that we know Todd Monken is in love with when it comes to quarterbacks. Guy that can get out, and he's a guy who really liked Jameis Winston. And if there's something Jameis Winston could do, it's I'll take a shot for you down the field, and I got the arm strength to do it. So, I think those are two things that he really likes. I also think this is an opportunity that you don't get very often in the NFL, which is to turn around and go, even if he was overdrafted, that guy from a raw talent perspective is a first-round draft pick, if not a second-round draft pick. I'm getting him back for a fifth.
Yeah. I think it opens the door for a whole nother conversation about the development of young quarterbacks, not just in the NFL, but also in college. And I think that today, a lot of these guys, when they're drafted, they're actually not ready for the NFL.
No.
Because the NFL requires a lot of stuff that, quite frankly, college programs don't. College, you can freestyle more. College, you can play with feel, and you can play just off schedule and whatnot. You can't do that.
Manziel.
Yeah, right. I mean, you can't do a lot of that in the NFL. And I think that, I think Shedeur Sanders is exhibit A of, that adjustment, right? It's actually almost good for him that he was a 5th-round pick, because you can – this is a bad way to put it, but you can afford as a franchise to be patient with Shedeur, right? Mm-hmm. And his growth. Because he's a 5th-round pick, you're paying him a couple $100,000 a year. You don't have a lot invested in him. And so if he works out, great, you hit the lottery, you hit the jackpot. And if he doesn't work out, well, yeah, 5th-round pick, we lost a couple $100,000. Not a big deal, right? And again, that sounds really mean, but that's the reality of the situation. You look at right now the copycat league, everyone's looking for the next Sam Darnold. Everyone's looking for their next Jared Goff experience, right? Everyone's looking for the next Justin Fields. These quarterbacks that did not succeed early in their career have been cast off by one or multiple teams in their career, and they're 4 to 7 years deep into that career, like Kyler Murray, right?
Yeah.
Productive statistically, but not a lot of actual tangible win-loss success with the Cardinals. Can he be that? Can he be this year's Sam Darnold? Now, he certainly doesn't have the stature at 5'10", but the NFL's a copycat league, and there's so many of these quarterbacks that, that don't turn out like Josh Allen did, right? Where he struggled his first couple years with the Bills before finding himself and turning into an NFL MVP, right? There's not a lot of patience with these franchises. This year alone, 10 coaching staffs were fired, okay, by owners. There's not a lot of patience in the NFL. And I think that it's not just with the coaches. That lack of patience has really trickled down to quarterbacks. I mean, even here in Cleveland, there is no patience here. There have been 42 of these guys that have rolled through here. Nope. None of them have been good enough. Got maybe a little close with Baker. He at least was able to be available for 53 straight games. We can't even get to the are you available to start for an entire season on a regular basis before we can even evaluate, are you a good quarterback? You see what I'm saying? You can't even get to that point. Can you play 17 games for us? Then we'll decide. Then we can go into are you any good? The Browns need 3-4 of these guys just to get through the 17-game schedule. That, to me, it compounds that frustration. But yeah, I'm not crazy about trying to rehabilitate Anthony Richardson here at all. I don't think it's going to work.
I think the most beautiful thing is it creates a competition for Shedeur. You give him the opportunity that a lot of people have said at the end of the year he deserves to compete for the job. You give him the opportunity to compete for the job. I think you give him legitimate competition with a guy who, just a physical standpoint, is everything you're going to ask for in a quarterback, even if I think anything from short to medium range, he is inaccurate as hell and can't complete a pass. But he's going to drive you to compete. And I think that's what you're looking for in a year where, again, I know we don't like it, but I'll say boom or bust. If you can find a way to fix Anthony Richardson, there's boom potential. I do think there's still a lot of promise with him, the same way I think there's promise with Shedeur. And if it doesn't work out, guess what? It probably really doesn't work out, and you stink. And as much as that sucks, 2027 is supposed to be the year for the quarterback, and at some point this team's going to have to draft one if they can't find one.
Well, for me, Anthony Richardson, once again, I never saw it on film. Watched, he only had 13 starts, right? So you watch every start, and the physical skills are there. But getting to one of the things I always look at is getting to second, third progression. Never had to do that because if you didn't like the first progression, he's just bigger and faster, stronger, and ran the ball. So that's the problem. Now, going back to what Daryl said about this patience, that's the other thing with these guys. These guys they're all in the shotgun. Pretty much at this point in time, right? So they're in the shotgun. Everything is one word. They're not in huddle. That whole operation, the idea of the footwork from underneath center to the shotgun, the ability, when you hear those quarterbacks say kill, right? They're making these 2 super long play calls, right? And if they don't like the first one, they kill it to the second one. So just the idea of getting in the huddle and making a play call is a huge difference for some of these guys. It takes them a while to do. So once again, they're not getting kind of prepped for the NFL, nor is that the power force job anymore. And they've made it very clear their job is to win games, but it's kind of affecting these guys come in because then they have to play right away.
There's going to be a lot, and I don't think they're going to have this problem completely solved by the time that we talk on Tuesday, although it'll be open.
Let me ask you a question. You
never know.
How about Dylan Gabriel or Anthony Richardson?
Anthony Richardson, thank you very much.
Anthony Richardson.
I'll take that any day of the week. Any day of the week. But
wow.
It's a conversation that we're going to continue to have, and I'm sure we'll talk about quarterbacks next week, but we are out of time for today. So, Coach Riz, Daryl.
You guys didn't even take a breath on that one. You didn't even think.
No
Jeez.
hesitation. It took absolutely none.
Reflex. Involuntary reflex.
All right, we got to run. I appreciate you both, as always. I'll talk to you guys next week. It is going to be overtime with myself, Jake Volnick, carrying you guys up until 11 o'clock. It's coming here in 5 minutes. For myself, for Lance Reisland, for Daryl Ryder, wish you guys a good rest of your Tuesday, and we'll talk to you next week right here on the FAN Offseason Special.